Hi, and welcome again to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Chris Gorski.
Today is March 10th, and today we have a topic that will be very familiar to you if you are a fan of the comic strip Peanuts.
Yes, and by Peanuts, you might know it as Snoopy. And our title today is The Benefits of a Security Blanket. So if you're familiar with Snoopy or the comic strip Peanuts, of course you know the little boy Linus, and he's famous for what?
For sucking his thumb.
And his...
carrying around.
It's a blue security blanket, right?
I didn't even know the color because I read it when it was only black and white.
I was thinking of the Peanuts holiday specials. So a little secret, it's Thanksgiving today of our recording.
Yeah.
And I'm still a big fan of the Peanuts holiday specials.
I am too. I like the music.
Yes!
I love the music.
This was exactly my point.
Yeah.
I enjoy the cartoons, but I find myself listening to the music so much more. And so there's a certain impact those characters have on me, and I kind of see them through the color cartoons that I watched as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And he carried that little blue blanket, and he felt safe.
It was not just a blanket. It was also a weapon.
For
example, like if there was a fly bothering him, he
like
can just zap the fly. It had a lot of functions. He had it with him for a reason. Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today is the functions of a security blanket. And here is our article, The Benefits of a Security Blanket. When you were little, did you have a favorite blanket or stuffed animal that you carried everywhere? Most children become attached to specific objects that give them feelings of happiness, comfort, or security. These items are commonly known as security blankets.
Security blankets, whether an actual blanket, teddy bear, or some other toy, provide children with a sense of safety in an uncertain world. Over time, they develop feelings of affection for the items. Scientists aren't sure why children form these connections, but there is a consensus that security blankets are beneficial for them.
For children in unfamiliar situations, security blankets have proven to lower heart rates and reduce stress. Typically, as children grow up, the sense of security offered by the object fades. However, attachment to the item may last long into adulthood. Old security blankets often become symbols of happy memories and childhood innocence.
In fact, many adults throughout the world keep the security blankets they had as children. A recent study in Britain found that 35% of adults sleep with stuffed animals. The specific items may change throughout one's life, and people frequently form similar attachments with new objects. Think about your favorite sweatshirt, pillow, or blanket that you enjoy snuggling under at home. Items like these provide a sense of comfort and safety to help us relax and forget some of our worries.
Unsurprisingly, scientists have found that security blankets offer many of the same benefits for adults as they do for children. Some people believe that adults never really outgrow the need for items that provide feelings of familiarity and comfort. Adults simply don't use the term security blanket to describe them. And I think that's true. There's a lot of things that we kind of like to keep around to make you feel safe and secure. I think a ring can often have that effect. But right now, our main pacifier is...
our cell phone. Boy, that's very appropriate. You picked up your cell phone, and I had never thought of it that way before. It really is your pacifier and your security blanket, isn't it?
That's right. And the word pacifier, in case you don't know it, it's something that gives you a feeling of peace. It's an American English word because in British English, they call it a dummy.
Oh, really? I thought they called it a nipple.
I guess you could.
I suppose so, right?
A nipple for a bottle, but they often call it a dummy.
The little thing that kids suck on when they're little. What was the slang term you used for a pacifier? We call it a nuck-nuck.
Oh, really?
Yeah, did you have any slang terms?
And that's a brand name now, I think.
Really?
Yes, it's a brand name for them.
That's funny.
But I just call it a pacifier. I don't remember using a pacifier. I sucked on my thumb.
Wasn't there a cowboy movie where, like, his giant handgun was called the pacifier?
Oh, yeah, I can imagine that, especially in American culture. Right. Let's not get into that. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Our title is pretty straightforward. The Benefits of a Security Blanket. This is telling us what good things there are about having a security blanket, because we may make fun of a kid, especially if he's already like 4 or 5 years old, still carrying around his security blanket. We think you should grow up and grow out of that. And I remember once when my son was 3 years old, we went to do our laundry in a laundromat because we lived in an apartment then, and somebody stole our laundry and my son's security blanket was gone. And it was like a really big deal. Of course he adjusted. He was 3 years old. But, everybody thought it was really important because he was so attached to it.
Yeah, and even if you could buy the exact same item,
it's not the same.
That's right. That emotional connection is not there. You need that item because you've bonded to this specific item.
And it's worn down in a certain way. It's kind of flattened out a little bit. Yeah, it's just not the same. It has sentimental value.
So did you have security blankets?
I cannot remember anything that I thought was such a big deal, but I sucked my thumb.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then I was even doing that when I went to church, and the adults would say, does it taste good? And I thought, it doesn't taste like cake. No, not really.
I had a lot of security blankets
really?
Growing up. I had many objects, and I suppose I still do. Now that you pointed out your cell phone is more or less the modern version of your security blanket.
Right.
But yeah, I had a Kermit the Frog doll. I had a green pillow.
Oh.
I had, after that, there was the American Olympics, and there was an eagle. I liked carrying that around. I probably had a security blanket toy until I was around 6 years old. No one really discouraged me, but I just stopped on my own.
That's usually what happens.
Right.
That's right. Let's go back to our first paragraph. When you were little, did you have a favorite blanket or stuffed animal that you carried everywhere? Now, a baby word for blanket is blankie. Where's my blankie?
Yeah, blankie. So that just sounds cuter. If you're listening to this on YouTube, tell us your security blanket object. I would love to know. So like I said, I had a pillow that I liked. I had a Kermit the Frog doll, an eagle doll. Tell us what your security blankets were. I enjoy seeing those.
Yep, I would too. Next sentence, most children become attached to specific objects that give them feelings of happiness, comfort, or security. And like I said earlier, all I can remember, I know I had dolls, I had all kinds of stuff. I really only remember sucking my thumb.
When we say security, it is uncountable. Be careful here. Securities is something financial. It's about money, and it just means safety.
That's a good example where if you make it plural, the meaning is completely different.
Completely different.
Okay, so specific objects means special or particular objects. Certain things, other things won't do the trick. It has to be this very thing. These items are commonly known as security blankets. And note that I paused a little bit for security blankets, and I was making air quotes.
That's right. You got to use your doing-doings because my students never remember how to say quotation marks right. And at this point, it's not a key vocabulary word for them, but they sure do remember doing-doing.
That's not even a sound in Chinese, but it's, I guess, easy for them to catch on to. There's a similar word that they use in the night market. It's doing-doing. And those kind of, it's a kind of like a sago pearl, I guess. These things that are kind of squishy.
Yeah.
So it must be sound symbolism. The sound kind of reminds you of what it's talking about.
Yeah, it's just a good mental note for it.
That's right. So security blankets refers not only to blankets themselves, but to any object that you like to keep close by to make you feel secure. And it truly is a phone, because think of how you feel when you suddenly notice your phone is not there.
Panic, right? Now, we're talking about blankets, and a synonym for a blanket is a cover. We will never say a security cover.
No. Okay.
Let's continue to our second paragraph. Security blankets, whether an actual blanket, teddy bear, or some other toy, provide children with a sense of safety in an uncertain world.
We've sort of covered that already, but for me, the key words here are an uncertain world. And the world is inherently uncertain. And often uncertainty is much worse than knowing that something bad is going to happen. Because if you know it's going to happen, you can get ready for it. But when things are uncertain, you don't know what to prepare for. That's much more unsettling.
When a newborn baby is It's just an infant, a tiny baby. They're always with mom or some other family member, and the baby feels safe. But as the baby grows and gets heavier, they can't be carried everywhere, and that attachment is still needed by the young child. And this is the theory why children carry security blankets. It's that it's almost a representation of your mother. It's a representation of still being close while developing your independence.
I'm being reminded of this every day now since my daughter has just arrived for a visit from the States, and her son, who is just a little over 1 year old, is still nursing. Whenever anything goes wrong, whenever he doesn't want to be held by some other person or he doesn't want to be doing something, it usually means like, can I go nurse? And then everything is fine. So, yeah, when you break that off, then you really kind of have something to replace it.
You have to adjust to that, I suppose.
Find a substitute.
I'm happy I don't remember that time.
Okay.
Let's continue. Over time, they develop feelings of affection for the items.
So like Chris was saying, you're kind of transferring that sense of security from being nursing with at your mother's breast to the item itself so that it can give you a similar feeling of security.
Affection just means love here. And let's continue to our next sentence. Scientists aren't sure why children form these connections, but there is a consensus that security blankets are beneficial for them.
This is a great sentence full of words you really should not only be familiar with, but know how to use. Form connections to connect with people. That is used so much these days. That means you get in touch with them and usually you'll have a good conversation with them. So you feel sort of good feelings for this person. Again, your feelings are renewed. Another really, really good word to know is consensus, which is sometimes difficult to achieve because we all have our ideas about things. But if you're in a group and it could be just two people and you have different ideas about something, you have to compromise. So you discuss it and come to a point where you'll say, well, I don't really like this the best and you don't like this the best, but we'll agree on it because we don't both hate it.
Consensus is an excellent word. It means everyone agrees, just like Karen says. C-O-N is a Latin word meaning together. And we can also look at the word beneficial when you see B-E-N-E. That's a nice Latin word for good.
Okay, so consensus, beneficial, connections. Make sure that you really know those words well and can use them. Our next paragraph, for children in unfamiliar situations, security blankets have proven to lower heart rates and reduce stress. So we have found that they are not just something that kids rely on or use as a crutch, C-R-U-T-C-H. C-R-U-T-C-H, crutch, is what you use when you've broken your leg and you need help walking. It's like a third and fourth leg for you. So they're not just a crutch. They're not a negative thing that you rely on without standing up on your own 2 feet. It's something that can really help you by making you more relaxed and calm.
And this isn't something just that children do. Animals do this too. We can often think of our pet dog that has their favorite toy and they'll want to sleep with it.
Yes.
When we took our 2 cats to the United States, we actually slept on a few T-shirts for a few nights to get our scent good in those T-shirts and put them in the cat carriers so that at least they had some familiarity in this very uncertain place of a scary airplane undercarriage.
That's a really nice idea. And also I've read online, because I don't have pets, that even if the owner puts the toy in the washer and dryer for the while, the cat will be really upset.
Yeah, yeah, They don't like their toys being washed terribly much. They tend to get really filthy. But if you try to replace, almost actually similarly, just like a kid, like you're saying, when you lost the security blanket in the wash, it was taken. You can't just get a duplicate item. It's like, this is not quite the same.
They don't even like waiting until it's dry when they get it back. It's taking too long. I want my toy.
I need this now.
Right. Typically, as children grow up, the sense of security offered by the object fades. So when you're a kid, you rely on this thing just like, at first you wanted to nurse at your mother's breast, and then maybe you had a pacifier that you sucked on, and then you also had this blanket or toy or whatever. But as you got older, what was your experience, Chris, you said?
I just stopped doing it. I can even recall one of the last times that I carried it. I was in a supermarket with my Eagle, and I was just like, I don't feel like carrying this anymore. It was
kind of embarrassing. No?
No, as just a kid, it was just I didn't want to carry it. I was happy to have a toy with me in the car, but I think almost I transferred the need for security just out of boredom almost. Like I needed
I've done
different
this enough.
more
It's time.
That's right. I need
Time
other
to
toys
do
to play
something
with.
else. Okay. However, attachment to the item may last long into adulthood. So some people will give them up. About how old were you then?
I would say 6.
Around 6 years old. So that's a good time when kids will think, well, I don't need to carry this around with me all the time anymore. Maybe you'll still keep it in your bed, but you don't have to have it with you all the time. Some people, however, keep this attachment long into adulthood. I can also give the example from my daughter. She has this little stuffed toy that she still has with her, takes it everywhere. It's not like she has to have it, but it's just kind of symbolic of connection to her childhood and her family, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's very sweet. I have several items like that myself. I had found a small toy outside. I stuck it in my car in the United States. And then when I moved here, I actually threw it in my suitcase, and I still have it.
Oh.
And my cats enjoy it, so they've taken over it. But I still have it. Yeah. They decide to whack it around every once in a while.
Uh-huh.
I knew a girl in college that actually kept her security blanket, and it was like really ratty. And I asked her, I was like, we were at like a house party over there, and I saw this ratty blanket, and I was like, what is this blanket? It's like in shreds.
It's kind of gross.
And well, she said, it's my security blanket, and I didn't think it was weird at all. I actually thought it was quite sweet that she still maintained this memento, this item from her childhood.
I now remember what mine was.
Ah.
There was one.
Okay.
There was a small pillow, and it had a crocheted cover on the top made by my grandmother.
Interesting.
It was pink, and I kept that forever until it got really ratty. And then my mom says, well, how about if I crochet a new cover for it? And then I'll also make a case. So actually the whole thing was replaced. It had a different color and everything, but it was the exact same style. But it was made by my mother, so it kind of kept up the connection. Now I remember. I think I still have it.
Oh, really? I was just
I had totally forgotten about it.
So it still may be somewhere hidden in a box.
I know where it is if I still have it. There's a box where I keep stuff like that. And it's not that ratty because my mother kind of renewed it. Even though it's old, it still looks okay. But now I remember.
Now, ratty is a word that means in very poor condition, especially for clothes, cloth, materials like that. It's in very poor condition. We could also say it's in tatters.
Thanks for reminding me of that. Okay, old security blankets often become symbols of happy memories and childhood innocence. And now that I remember it, it was connection to my grandmother.
That's funny.
That was it.
Let's continue to our next paragraph. In fact, many adults throughout the world keep the security blankets they had as children, as we just explained.
So why do we keep these things when they get really old and ratty? Because we just want to hang on to them because the world is so uncertain. And this is one thing that tells us it's okay. It's okay. It's safe.
I wonder if there are people who did not value their childhood or had difficult childhoods. I wonder if they are more likely or less likely to keep their security blankets or those childhood mementos.
That's a really good question. And that makes me think of two things. Now, first of all, my guess would be they'd probably be more likely to hang on to it because they had nothing else to hang on to. On the other hand, I remembered something that I'd read online recently. It was a very long, detailed article, a very good one, about a boy who had grown up in a Romanian orphanage. And he had, honestly, no connection to any human. No connection. The nurses went in there, changed their linens and clothes, and they were just mostly lying on the bed most of the day, doing nothing. A lot of the children were severely handicapped, either mentally or physically. He grew up like that. An American couple came to adopt him. He could not form a bond. He had no experience of forming a human bond.
That's funny. I almost wonder if we are thinking of the same story, but there may be a lot of stories about Romanian orphanages where children can't form bonds. And so how do you maintain a security blanket if you're unable to form attachments in the first place?
To anybody or anything.
Yeah, to a person.
Exactly.
Let's continue here. A recent study in Britain found that 35% of adults sleep with stuffed animals.
Is that kind of shocking?
Okay, so I was reading about this. And there was a study by a teddy bear manufacturer called Build-A-Bear.
Okay.
And they said 40% of adults sleep with a teddy bear. And I was like, this is a biased study.
But it looks pretty close to the truth.
I suppose so. I just thought it was Build-A-Bear, and I was like, I don't know about this. But here's a second study. So, or is it like you hold it, or it's just on your bed, right?
Sleeping next to you. But I can say that my advisor for my PhD thesis is now well past retirement, and he has a stuffed animal in his life. So I believe it's probably true.
Let's continue here. The specific items may change throughout one's life, and people frequently form attachments with new objects.
So maybe the old object gets kind of ratty and you're kind of embarrassed to have it around. You can become attached to something else.
Let's continue. Think about your favorite sweatshirt, pillow, or blanket that you enjoy snuggling under at home.
So what is your substitute item?
Just a pillow. I need to hold a pillow when I sleep, but that's it.
Cuddling.
Yeah.
Any pillow will do.
Any pillow will do. Let's continue. Items like these provide a sense of comfort and safety to help us relax and forget some of our worries.
And this is especially true for people who live alone or are single. Last paragraph. Unsurprisingly, scientists have found that security blankets offer many of the same benefits for adults as they do for children. Well, we grew up from being children. We're still the same person. Some people believe that adults never really outgrow the need for items that provide feelings of familiarity and comfort. So we never really grow out of it. We still need comfort. In fact, we all do. Adults simply don't use the term security blanket to describe them.
Yeah, the revelation for me today, the big oh my goodness moment was when you picked up your cell phone saying, this is your security blanket. And it really is.
It really is for just about every human right now.
I agree. That's mind-blowing for me.
We have a few questions for you. Number 1, which of the following questions can be answered by the passage?
A, why do adults grow out of the need for security blankets?
It didn't tell us why. B, what are some positive aspects of keeping security blankets? That sounds like the right answer.
That's the right answer.
So, C?
C is, when is the best time to give up security blankets?
We have no recommendation at present. D, how do children create connections with security blankets? That was also not really described. So the answer is B, number 2.
Which word in the passage means an opinion that most people agree with?
And Chris was mentioning that the beginning of this word means with or together, so that word is?
Consensus.
Very good. Number 3, why does the attachment to childhood security blankets not disappear when people grow into an adult?
Because these objects, and now we have our blank, they often become symbols of happy memories and childhood innocence.
And number 4?
So we have a fill in the blank, we have a sentence, and find the best word. So according to some studies, both children and adults can blank from keeping a security blanket.
You have a really big clue here, and that is the preposition from. So they can blank from without even reading the sentence carefully. The first thing that pops into my mind is benefit, and that's the correct answer, B-E-N-E-F-I-T, benefit.
Actually, speaking of that, when we answered number 2, consensus, I was just thinking of the preposition we like to use here, and we're in consensus.
That's right. Okay. Or we have achieved a consensus through this meeting.
My favorite phrase is a good compromise leaves everybody unsatisfied.
That's right, but you can live with it.
You have to live with it.
And that's what we end up doing. That's all we have time for today. We'll see you next time. Tune in then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.